Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips. This is your weekly fishing report.
Break Cove, all back down in here in Mesquite Bay. All these back lakes, Brundit back here, Big Brundit, Little Brundit. You got the little back lakes, you got the shoreline that's here. You've got a tremendous amount of bait that's been working back these areas here. We've got nice redfish that are cruising back and forth up and down these shorelines. We've got some scattered nice trout that are back in these areas as well. Been liking to fish the back lake that's back up here, throwing top water back in this area. We've been throwing plastics back in here. Few suspended baits, but like I said, there's quite a bit of grass that's back in this area here, so you have to really be careful throwing that suspended bait that's back in this area. So, single hook top water baits have been good. Weedless hook for your plastics if you need be. Otherwise, open hook will be fine because we've had a nice fluctuation of water that's come and gone. Now we're on the backside of the full moon. This will be happening this upcoming week. So your profile sizes still need to be on the somewhat small side, 3-inch, 4-inch. I wouldn't really throw anything bigger than a 4-inch at this point unless the fish dictate to you that's what they really want to do. If you've got multiple people in your party, then you can try somebody with a big, a 5-inch, 5.5-inch, maybe even a 6-inch bait if you so choose, or maybe a bigger topwater bait just to see if you get some type of reactionary strike or a feeding strike of some kind in these areas. But the most productive bait that we've been throwing size-wise has been in that 3-inch, 3.5-inch paddle tails. It's either been like the down south lure twisted T in the burner shad or the original size white ice chicken of the sea. Again, the twisted T has been one of the most favorite colors consistently all summer long. That bait has been really good and very productive. Newer bait they've been throwing here recently has been the knock and tail lures. They have been really good. They've got that 3.5 to 4-inch size bait. It's a spectacular bait. And both the chicken of the sea heavy metal has been very good. White ice in that one as well has also been productive. So those particular baits, as far as profile size and colors, have been very productive, especially out on these edges. A little bit off color water. Some of the water that's when you get that nice clear, we've had some nice calm conditions the last few days. So that water really calms down and it gets really clear again with that grass and everything. So the Little John golden red glitter has been good. The kitchen sink, which is a gold, black, and silver flake, white flake that's in it, but it's more translucent. So it's been very, very productive bait as well. Again, 16th ounce jig heads is what we're throwing. We're not throwing anything heavier than that. That's been very consistent for me all summer long, from the springtime this summer into the fall, and that will continue to be a trend for me, is to throw that 16th ounce jig head to allow that bait to really just kind of glide through the strike zone. We really don't want to just make that bait dive down into the grass, because you're going to constantly, unless you're really good at controlling that bait with that heavier jig head, put the 16th out there. It gives you a lot of leeway, and it gives you a lot of flexibility that you can really work that bait. Sometimes you can work it just below the surface, just kind of like a subsurface topwater bait, or allow it to just float just above the grass line, and you see those potholes and you work it down in that. So we're finding fish in these particular areas, and it's very productive for us. We're catching a lot of quality fish, a lot of good redfish. And again, we finally got out of our two worst months in July and August, and we're into September, and we've had rain opportunities that's cooled our bays and our waters down, not to mention our air as well. It's been some nice pleasant evenings that we have had in and around the humidity time frames, but when that rain comes in there, it really cools things off. So it's kind of interjected energy into our bay systems, and it's made the bay systems better. And that's going to get better with that freshwater flow that we've had in there. Salinity levels will come back just a bit to more normal size levels, which helps with the fishing. Fish want to be a little bit more active. The water's a tad bit more cooler, so it's just a help for the whole bay system, what's all across the board for everything, for every aspect of it. The freshwater influx will help us down the road with the bay system and make them really healthy as we head into our fall time, with the rest of September and October and November dead ahead of us. Now, these months that are coming up starting now as we head toward October, November, December, January, not too far away. The artificial game begins to just light up even more and even more and even more. So If you've had some tough days on the water over the last 2 or 3 months to getting out of the hot time of the year, hold your head up, because it's fixing to get really good throwing these artificials and all these different styles of artificials in both the plastics, suspended baits, topwater baits. All these areas are going to start to light up even more so. Redfish are going to start to school up as they're going to start making their way toward the Gulf as they begin their season for their breeding season, egg laying seasons out into the Gulf. So if you start working these back bays and back lakes and these edges, you will more than likely at some point come across a medium-sized school, a small school of redfish tailing, a big school of redfish tailing somewhere in and around these areas. Just get out there and look, work these shorelines, look for your bait in these areas. Again, majors and minors have been very productive for us, especially in and around those time frames. As we've tapered away from it, it's been a little bit more difficult. As we've been in and around the majors and minors, it's been very productive for us. So make sure you incorporate that into your fishing day and into these fishing areas up here, and you'll locate fish. All these areas up here from Allen's Bight all the way back toward Paul's Mod area, Long Reef Bend area, all these little back lake mouths that work along this edge right here off the Aransas Bay side. There's, again, tremendous amount of bait that's working up and down this shoreline. There's just different structure areas that if you fish these areas up in here, you know about the different kinds of structures. And we're going to start not necessarily transitioning weather-wise, but the fish are going to start to move to different areas as we transition toward our fall and our winter time here in Texas, especially in the bay systems. You've got shale, you've got mud, you've got grass, you've got edges, you've got guts, you've got cuts, you've got passes, pinch points, all these type of different things that are up and down the shoreline that lend itself great structure to either hold trout or your redfish, flounder. All three of those species have been very persistent up and down this shoreline, all the way up in here to the Mott. If you like to get back in Fence Lake, if you got that type of boat, again, you have to be careful when you go back into Fence, because it can get super skinny on you really fast if you're not paying attention to the tide reports in that area. But when we do have good tides and a decent amount of water, Fence Lake is one of the great areas to get back into, because it's got deep areas along edges. It's got guts. It holds lots of bait. It's got great structure and grass. So you can find schools of redfish. You can find schools of black drum. You can get your occasional flounder stuck back in some of these guts. Trout, you'll find some really nice trout that are back in some of these areas as well. You just work these areas. Again, we're transitioning off of the full moon. We're headed on the back side of it as we head in another 5 to 6 days. We'll be on those wild card days. So, the twisted tea in both the original size and the burner shad for the down south it's been very, very, very productive for us all summer long as we head into our fall, Texas fall, if you will, time frame. That's going to consistently be a terrific bait as we head into the more cooler times of the year, late October, November, December time frames. All this up and down here, you got great grass. Again, you got nice edges that are out in this area here. Topwater baits have been good. We're getting decent amount of action with the topwater baits. I like the Super Spook Junior. There's, if you have your own topwater bait that you like to throw, then throw it. It's fine. It's not, there's no really right or wrong one. Just maybe profile size. You don't want to get a super spook. Looks like a 5-inch version or the 6-inch version of the topwater bait. It might be just a tad bit too big, but the Spook Juniors, those are really my go-to as far as the topwater bait goes. A really great bait to throw. Good searcher bait too, especially when you got that need of thigh-deep water. You can work some of those edges out there on that and find some redfish or some trout that may be active. Again, the knock and tail in both the greenback and the heavy metal have been really good. Holly Jolly also in the knock and tail has been very good. So it's kind of a really light pink with lots of different flake color that's in it. It's been very productive up and down this shoreline here. Work these back lake mouths. You'll find some flounder that are laid up there on these edges and down in these guts. Again, 16th ounce jig heads. Pay attention to your majors and minors, what's going on. That's been the very, very most productive time frame for people throwing artificials. And again, we're just now starting to edge here in September of where the artificial game is not going to do anything but get better each day that you go out and fish it. Not saying there's not going to be some tough days, because there will be. It's fishing. But the artificial game gets better and better and better as we continue to transition toward, October, November, December. So keep that in mind as you continue to work these areas. And if you're learning to throw the artificial, stick with it, man. Stick with the artificial game. It's a lot of fun. You can learn a lot, but every time that you transition back to bait, you kind of backtrack a little bit. So when you do this, just stick it out and stick with it, and have a lot of fun with it. And once you kind of get the hang of working those artificial baits and applying these different situations and things and sizes and profiles, you'll start having a lot of fun catching fish. Back down here in Port Bay, out there off Copano, as you head back toward the 188 bridge, this west shoreline that's all up and down here, there's a terrific edge that's there. Terrific amount of grass that's on it, bait. There's got some scattered redfish that's been up and down this. We've found some pretty decent trout, 18s and 19s that are in here, which has been pretty good, especially up for this estuaries up in here, especially all summer long. So that's been very pleasant surprise to find those fish consistently back on the shoreline. As you get back around this little bend right here, great area here. You got some great potholes. We were in this thing the other day throwing topwater baits and getting blow-ups left and right. So, man, if you got topwater baits and you like to throw topwater baits, spend some time on this particular shoreline. It's just right down from the 188 bridge that goes across there. That thing, again, it got some spectacular grass. If you pay attention to what your tide reports are, they're up and down here. When that thing's about thigh deep, just above knee deep water, you get some really great opportunities to find some good quality fish in here. Now, if you have the type of boat, depending on what the tide is, and you can get underneath that 188 bridge and get even further back into Port Bay, get back over there. Now, there's some nice, softer mud that's over there that get calf deep on you in areas, not everywhere, but there is some more solid stuff that's back there on some of these shorelines. And we find some nice redfish that are working back in those areas there. Some scattered trout, flounder. We've pulled a few flounder out there. The one thing we've been catching the flounder on has been the white ice and pearl down south burner shads. Those have been very productive for us in those particular colors. That water being off color, a little bit more muddy. That pearl color really shows up. If you got again, I'm not a big chartreuse guy, but if you got something that's got a little chartreuse on it, when that water gets dirty like that, it'd be ideal to throw that back in there and just kind of bounce it across that bottom. The flounder bite has been pretty aggressive at times. Otherwise, then if you're not used to fishing for flounder, it's a tough bite to kind of figure out. But if you are used to that, you know exactly what I'm talking about and what you need to do to catch those fish. And we have caught some that are back in those areas. Working the far shoreline over here on this southeast side has been somewhat good. It's been not quite as productive in some days as others. It's been okay, hit or miss on some days, but again, nonetheless, it's a great area for you to fish. If you've got all the things in the right place, as far as you got the major or minor working in your favor. Again, there's been plenty of bait. Bait's not been an issue anywhere in the estuaries this year. Finding bait and locating that, and then just kind of figuring out your structure. Again, 16th ounce jig heads is all you need. You don't think anything heavier than that. If you do, you're just going to consistently get hung up in grass, and it's going to be frustration for you. So just throw the 16th ounce, bounce that thing, work it, straight retrieve it. Again, the knock and tail lures have been great in both the green moss or the greenback, in the heavy metal, in the white ice. Holly Jolly in that flavor as well has been very good. The down south twisted tea has been, again, it's been productive. It's been money all summer long, and that has not changed any. So if you're getting the twisted tea flavors, stick to it. Keep throwing it. It's super productive for you. Another thing that's starting to really work for us again is the jerk shrimp. Marker 54 jerk shrimps working very good, bouncing it off the bottom, working underneath the popping cork, all these areas in here, especially if you find some of those good potholes. It's got deep grass around it. Work it in those potholes and just bounce that thing around there. We found some really good redfish in some of those potholes like that, and some decent trout as well. So again, work these areas, be consistent with it, and be patient with it more than anything else, because again, we're headed into the prime time for artificial baits, as we've got the rest of September, October, November, some super months for us to be throwing artificials.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.